Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I'm going to be going through my July reading wrap up, and I read 12 books in July, which is a little more than usual. Usually I read between 8 to 10 books per month, so apparently I was in a really good reading mood in July. Thankfully most of these were 3 stars or above, and then right at the end of the month I had two-star reads back to back. I started to feel like I was heading into a reading slump, but thankfully that seems to have passed. So yeah, I'm gonna get stuck into things. I will leave timestamps in the description just in case you wanted to skip ahead to any particular book, but I am gonna start by going through my star ratings for each book. So the first book that I read in July also happens to be at the bottom of the pile. I didn't really think this through, but the first book that I read was Dragonhaven by Robin Hobb, which is book 2 in the Rainwild Chronicles and book 11 in the Realm of the Eldlings. Overall, I gave this one 4 stars and I really enjoyed it. I'm going to be picking up the third book, hopefully in August. Next up, I read The Fiancée Farce by Alexandria Bellefleur, which I gave 4 stars. And then I also read Tell Me Everything by Laura Kay, which unfortunately I gave 3 stars. Was a little disappointed that that was only 3 stars, but after that I read Ring Shout by Djèlí Clark, which I gave 4.5 stars, but it was basically a 5. It's only a really short novella, so there wasn't much that I could rate, but I really enjoyed this one. The Last Word by Taylor Adams I gave 4 stars. The Only One Left by Riley Sager I gave 4.5 stars. Again, it was basically a 5 stars, but I had a few little things that I didn't like, which I'll come on to later on in the video. I then read Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell, which was my 5 stars of the month. This is going to be one of my favourite books of the year, and you're going to hear me gush about this later on in the video. Finlay Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cosimano. I gave 4 stars, and then I gave Looking Glass Sound by Catriona 4.5 stars. It was somewhere between a 4 and a 5. I really struggled to rate this because the first half was 5 stars, but then I didn't like the ending, so 4.5 stars for Looking Glass Sound. And then I read Scarlet by Genevieve Cogman, which I gave 2 stars. Another 2-star book that I had in July was Lessons in Chemistry by Garmus, which I wasn't expecting to not like this, but this was probably my most disappointing book of the month. Finally, I read 0 Days by Ruth Ware, which I gave 4 stars. I'm not going to talk about this in this video because I do have a reading vlog coming up for this, but yeah, I enjoyed this one, but again, I didn't like the ending, and I feel like that was a common theme with July's reads, but let's talk about some of these in more detail. So I think let's start with Looking Glass Sound, actually, by Catriona Ward. So this is the third book that I've read by this author, and this wasn't my favourite, but I did really enjoy the beginning of this. Like I said, we're following this main character called Wilder, I think his name is, and at the start of the book his family take him to this seaside town where they're going to be spending the summer, and he ends up befriending 2 kids while he's there. And it's a story about their friendship initially, but also alongside of this, someone is stalking this town. So someone called the Dagger Man is breaking into people's homes and taking photos of their children. He's not actually harming anyone, but it's all very threatening in tone. So that's the setup for this book. I would actually really recommend not reading the inside dust jacket of this because it spoils the direction that this book goes in, and I'm really glad that I didn't read it because I was surprised by what direction this went disappointing. Catriona Ward is incredible at writing atmosphere, and this felt very creepy and uncomfortable at times, and that was what was making me want to pick it up. Every time I put this down, I found myself thinking about it. So I was convinced that this was going to be a 5 stars, but I found the ending a little disappointing. I won't spoil anything, obviously. It wasn't that I didn't like the direction that it went in. It was more that it became very messy, and I felt like it was trying to do too much, and it was a little bit confusing, but also I feel like that's the purpose of Catriona Ward's books, is that she deliberately makes you feel confused, and that's what I usually like. So yeah, I had mixed feelings on the ending to this, but overall I would recommend it if you've liked other books by this author, and I'm definitely going to pick up more books by Catriona Ward because I do really like this writing style. It's the kind of psychological horror that really works for me. Moving on to my favourite book of the month, and that was Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. So I have owned this book for over a year, and I'm really annoyed at myself that it's taken me so long to get round to it, because this was an easy 5 stars. I really loved the romance in this. I thought the characters were adorable, and it also has a mystery, which I wasn't expecting. Basically, this is set in a world where there's this empire called the Iska Empire, and the way that they rule over the other planets in this solar system is through treaties that are sealed through marriages. So before the start of this book, one of the princes of this empire is killed, and they urgently need to find someone to replace him in his marriage, because the country of the guy that he was married to, their treaty is due for renewal very soon. So this party prince called Kiem, he enters into this arranged marriage with Jane, who is the widow of the prince that was killed at the start of the book. Kiem and Jane are very different. So whereas Kiem doesn't really know much about politics and doesn't really care to know much about politics, Jane has always known that he's going to be part of an arranged political marriage. So initially there's a little bit of distrust in their relationship, and I was worried that it was going to annoy me that the two characters wouldn't communicate with each other. Usually that's something that would annoy me in a romance book. However, once you get to know the characters' backstories, it makes sense that they wouldn't trust each other initially. Like I said, there's also a mystery within this, and I personally loved the romance more than anything else in this book, but I think that if you have no interest in political sci-fi, then this book might not work for you, because the sci-fi elements were there and they were quite prominent. So yeah, if you don't have any interest in that, then you'll probably find those bits kind of boring. But I also think if you have no interest in romance, then the political sci-fi elements weren't enough to carry the story. Hope that makes sense. I feel like I've just rambled about this book, but yeah, I really loved it, and it's going to be a favourite of the year. So from my favourite book of the month, let's talk about my most disappointing book of the month, which was Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. I was really expecting to like this book. I bought the beautiful Waterstone special edition because this has been really popular. I think it was actually the Waterstones fiction book of the year last year, and it has a 4.3 something average rating on Goodreads, so I thought that I would at least like this book even if I didn't love it. I think your enjoyment of this book really depends on how you feel about the main character. So this follows a main character called Elizabeth, who's a scientist in the 1950s and 1960s, and she never felt like a real person to me. We're basically following this main character throughout her career, and we're seeing the misogyny that she has to deal with and the sexism, and it was intense at times. There's a very graphic rape scene within the first 30 pages of this, which I wasn't expecting. I think I'd heard people mention the content warnings for this, but I wasn't expecting that in the first 30 pages. So yeah, just wanted to mention that because this often gets described as light-hearted and funny, and I didn't find that at all personally. Like, to me, this was traumatic and sad. I do think it's possible to explore deeper and darker themes within a book using a light-hearted writing style, but the tone of this felt really off to me. It was really jarring in places. The dialogue felt really unnatural to me, and it really took me out of the story. So yeah, unfortunately, I gave this one 2 stars. However, I think I am going to give this edition to my mum or one of my sisters if they want to read it, because I know how popular this book is, and I know that this really worked for some people. It just didn't work for me, unfortunately. Another book that kind of disappointed me in July was Scarlet by Genevieve Cogman. So this was the Goldsborough book for July, I think. It might have been June or August, I'm losing track, but I got this recently and I wanted to pick up the audiobook for this because it's narrated by Georgia Maguire, who's one of my favourite audiobook narrators. So I went into this with reasonable expectations. I was expecting to like the audiobook, even if I didn't like the actual story, and that turned out to be true. So in this book, we are following a main character called Eleanor. It's set in 1793 during the French Revolution, and it's an alternative history. So within this world, vampires are part of the aristocracy, is that how you say it? But most of them have been driven out of France. So Eleanor is recruited by the League of the Scarlet Pimpernel. I don't know how to explain it, but basically there's this mission that they're looking to do, and they believe that Eleanor can help them. Gonna leave it very vague. But yeah, I liked the narration, like I said, and I thought the historical elements were done well. However, what I didn't really like was the magical elements. So the vampires didn't really feel that relevant. I just thought that the magical elements were a bit lazily written, and some of it didn't really make any sense. There was one point in the audiobook where I had to rewind it quite a bit because I couldn't understand what had happened. Like, the pacing in this was all over the place. Like, it was really fast paced, but nothing interesting was happening. Maybe I would have enjoyed it more if I'd read the physical copy, but I did like the audiobook. The narrator was really good, but yeah, unfortunately this was a miss for me, and I'm probably not going to continue the series. I think this is the first book in a new series, and with the way that it left off, I don't think I'm really interested in anything that's going to happen next. So yeah, I'm probably going to unhaul this, which is a shame because it's a really beautiful edition with beautiful sprayed edges, but I'm not going to keep a book if I didn't like it. So yeah, I feel like I'm being really negative in this video, but let's talk about a book that I actually liked in July. So I read Finlay Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cosimano a couple of weeks ago, and I really enjoyed it. This was very close to being a 5 stars. I think I gave it 4 stars in the end. There was something that happened towards the end where it felt like an element of the mystery was wrapped up too quickly. So that was my only small complaint, but I really enjoyed this. This was a really fun mystery. We're following a main character called Finlay Donovan, who is an author, and she writes romantic suspense. At the start of the book, she is having a meeting with her agent, I think it is, or someone on her team. She's having a meeting in this coffee shop, and someone overhears them talking about her latest book, and this person mistakes Finlay for a hit woman. So she leaves Finlay a note basically requesting her help in killing off her husband, and that's the setup for the plot. I don't want to say much more than that because I was not expecting most of what happened in this book, but it was a really fun time. You do have to suspend disbelief quite a lot, but if you're looking for a mystery that doesn't take itself too seriously, then I would really recommend this. I'm definitely gonna continue the series. I also felt more invested in the romance than I was expecting, and I'm really interested to see how the romantic elements develop in future books. That's all I'm gonna say. Next on my list is The Fiancée Farce by Alexandria Bellefleur, which was one of my most anticipated romance releases of 2023, and I'm really glad that I liked this one. I thought this was a really cute romance. I didn't give it 5 stars. However, if you are interested in a sapphic romance that has very little angst and the conflict that it does have makes sense, then I would really recommend this one. So this follows a main character called Tansy, who's a bookstore owner, and she has a bit of a crush on this book cover model called Gemma. So when her family are going on at her trying to get details about her dating life, she decides to make up a fake girlfriend called Gemma, and she bases this fake girlfriend on this cover model that she keeps seeing that she has a crush on. So the problem starts when Tansy is at this family wedding and Gemma walks in, and Tansy is thinking, oh crap, my family thinks that that is my fake girlfriend. No, not my fake girlfriend, my actual girlfriend. What is she doing here? This is all gonna end in disaster. But what Tansy isn't prepared for is for Gemma to not only go along with the lie, but Gemma announces that they're actually engaged. And it turns out that Gemma needs to get married in order to inherit her grandfather's business. It's a bit of a messy setup, but it's really, really cute. I really liked the chemistry between the two main characters, and yeah, it was just a really sweet story. I actually read this on my Kindle, and it's the first time that I've read an Alexandria Bellefleur book physically, and I really liked it. So yeah, would recommend this one. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars. Next on my list is another anticipated release for 2023, and that is The Only One Left by Riley Sager, and I gave this 4.5 stars. However, the more that I think about it, I think my rating was based on the vibes at the time, and I did genuinely enjoy this one. I think because I haven't had a 5-star Riley Sager book in a really long time, I was just excited to actually be enjoying one of his books. So this is a gothic mystery thriller following a main character who is hired to be a carer for this woman called Lenora. And Lenora is now in her 70s, but when she was 17, she was accused of murdering her entire family, and she still lives in this big house on top of these cliffs. The only way that she can communicate is through writing notes on a typewriter. It's set in the 1980s or 1990s, I don't know if I mentioned that, but yeah, basically there's 2 timelines. So we have this timeline in the present day where we're following our main character as she arrives at this very spooky mansion and she starts caring for Lenora, but then Lenora is also recounting what happened back then. The atmosphere in this was exactly what I wanted and I was not expecting certain twists in this book. I do think maybe there were too many twists. Riley Sager is well known for going a little bit over the top, and I think this took it a little bit too far towards the end. I'm not going to go into details obviously, but you know where you're reading a thriller and it's twist after twist after twist and you start to get whiplash because your brain just can't quite keep up with what's happening. That's how I felt about The Only One Left. Would recommend this if you like liked Lock Every Door by Riley Sager and Home Before Dark. It felt more like those books over his more recent releases, which I didn't enjoy as much. The final book on my list is The Last Word by Taylor Adams, which was another anticipated 2023 thriller release for me, and I'm glad that I liked this one. It didn't quite give me that 5-star feeling because I started to lose interest towards the end, but I really liked the setup for this and how it's this cat and mouse type plot where we're basically following this main character who may or may not be being stalked by an author. So she's staying in this remote location and she spends most of her days reading these cheap books on Kindle. So in the first chapter, she leaves a negative review for a book and the author comments on this review and they have a bit of back and forth, and then she kind of puts it out of her mind. But yeah, you start to get the feeling that maybe she's being stalked by this author, and I really liked the tension in this. It was very action-packed. There were parts that had me on the edge of my seat and it was so fast-paced. Like, if you're looking for a thriller that you can read in one sitting, I would recommend this one. I did lose interest towards the end because I wanted more from the ending, but also I don't know how I would have preferred for it to end. I think it just went a little too far and a little too over the top, but I know that loads of people have loved this and given it 5 stars, and I gave it 4 stars. Would recommend this one, and I will read more books by Taylor Adams because I know now what to expect from his books. His books feel like action movies, and sometimes I'm just in the mood for that. That does bring me to the end of this video though, so thanks for watching. If you made it this far, let me know in the comments what was your favourite book that you read in July, and have you read any of the books that I talked about in this wrap up? Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and click subscribe if you would like to see more videos from me, but otherwise I will see you next time. Bye!